I've got some distinguished panel members here on the stage. I've got Tino with Commend, Eric with Theseus, and then Jeff Fields with Gallagher. Again, you've been listening to me all day. I'm Jeff Drews with Southwest Microwave. We're going to talk about system modernization, what that really means in today's world when we come to aging infrastructure, how we're modernizing things with technology, how do we accomplish this, what's the future look like. And gentlemen, if you want to just share a little bit about yourself and what you do and your roles, and then we'll kick off with some questions and hopefully get some audience participation towards the end. Tino, you want to start?
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time. I think it turns the end of the afternoon, so some of you might be eager to go enjoy. So we'll keep it interesting for you. My name is Tino Urbina. I'm head of global accounts for Commend International. I also manage the Latin American market, and that gives you a good exposure to aging facilities and how you can systematically, update. So it's a task. I'm hoping to share some valuable information with you today.
And I'm Eric Moreau. I work for Theseus. I'm a partner there. We are a physical security design and consulting firm. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, so I've seen some of the aging environments and have tried to help as many customers as possible get out of that aging area into the modernization. And I appreciate you guys all sticking around and having me on the panel, and look forward to hopefully giving you guys some good information.
My name is Jeff Fields. I'm the Global Director for Federal Programs for Gallagher, and excited to be a part of this panel. The discussions as far as modernization is near and dear to my heart. 3.5 decades in this industry, and I've experienced a lot of the siloed approach to physical security and the challenges that organizations have had to deal with in outdated disparate products that don't communicate with each other. So looking forward to this discussion, and we'll carry it from there.
Yeah, great. Well, Jeff, since you're at the end of the line, we'll start you with the first question. How about that?
Love it.
And we're starting off with I think something that's very relevant, things we've talked about today, but the question is the convergence of physical and cybersecurity is changing the landscape. I think everybody in this room would agree to that. But really, how should organizations, end users, the industry as a whole, how should they respond to this?
It's a great question, especially when you're dealing with, what we deal with today is a traditional SOC or a Security Operations Center, with CSOC now being considered critical to the operation of the SOC itself. The ability to translate the information that's coming from both operating systems to be able to ensure that the integrity of data as it's being carried from one path to the other is consistent, but also secure. In this world we live in today, especially in the access control space, it's critical for us to understand what are those risks associated with operating within the environments that these facilities are being managed from, especially when you're working through a cloud-based application. It is an ongoing effort to modernize this, and the challenge, both fortunately and unfortunately, is we got a lot to learn. We've got even a larger ground to build on, but I think you're going to see that modernization now start to take hold, especially with the hyper-scaled approach to data centers today and what we're seeing in the cloud space that's going to take and evolve us significantly over the next 5 years.
Great.
And just to add a little bit to that, so I think one of the things about cybersecurity and physical is I think cybersecurity is also driving a little bit of that modernization from the physical side, right? So we have some of the older systems. Most of the time in the physical security, I know many years ago, we used to just throw it in and leave it, right? If it was working, it's not broken, just leave it. Well, right now we can't do that anymore. The cybersecurity side of the world is kind of changing that. You've got to make sure that we're securing the equipment, the edge devices, the head ends, those things. And so I think a lot of that cybersecurity is kind of driving us modernization of our systems. And so I think it's important that we stay on top of that. I think a lot of it can be driven by the manufacturers, right, with firmware updates, things of that. So I think it's important as for us specifically as consultants, a lot of the things that we discuss with our clients as they want to do this modernization is that we're making sure that, you know, once they move and shift to that, that they're also putting things into plan down the road for, you know, hey, what are we doing next year or the year after? Once we make this modernization or we get there, what are we going to do next year after? They've got a lot of different technology out there that allows you to understand end of life for equipment, right? If it's an end of life of your security equipment, it's very important that you guys, that people are tracking that because it's going to become a vulnerability within your system. And then also, you know, there's also technology out there that'll tell you when to update your firmware. It's super important and very surprising how often you can go into a client's environment and they haven't updated their firmware in a year, 2 years. It's extremely important to at minimum do it 2 to 3 times a year, maybe even 4. You know, usually you get some small patches sent out, firmware updates, but I think that cybersecurity as a whole is really driving modernization.
I've seen both sides of this. I work in some areas, specifically the nuclear industry, where there are a lot of analog sensors out there, and there is a fear to upgrade to newer digital type sensors because the analogs are immune to some of the cyber regulations. And I think it holds industries back on some level too. There's multiple aspects to all of this. Right. Tino, did you have anything you wanted to add, or I hit you with the next question?
To me, the way I see in the market, and I think the markets are going to drive how we move forward, talking about silos and how that impact our industry, where you have physical cyber and the human element, right? Where the physical side, I come from 20 years in industry, first in the physical side, now in the unified communications technology side. The dialogue between the two parties is still yet to be developed, right? So that's the human part that we need to. And the urgency in my side of the question, because we do see that end of life, then we recommend them from a manufacturing standpoint of view to our enterprise clients, because we see the agent and the risk that comes with potential cyber attacks that are multiplying thanks to AI. So when years ago, it used to be, we had conversations about how are we going to budgetize from IT to security, to this physical security. Another conversation is we have to communicate better because AI is increasing that risk and at the edge devices, right? So moving to zero risk.
Yeah. And Tino just diverged into the next question. So I'll ask it and see if you want to add anything specific. But where we were going with this next is how our systems are evolving and do trends like AI influence the path forward? I think from what you just said, it definitely influences it. Anything you would add to what you just said? Or?
Only that I feel that the industry as a whole, especially in the physical security side, we've been behind on adopting a mentality where we are open to learn the new protocols and minimize risk. So we need to learn to speak cat. If you speak dog, you need to do the opposite. We need to be bilingual in that sense, right? So the approach to market to the security has to be fluid and moving with the times. So that's the invitation.
Yeah. And AI, and I've heard at a few presentations here about AI. A thing that we try to do for our clients is, we want to make people more efficient, right? Operations more efficient. And AI is going to help do that. We're going to help with, searching, investigations. I think it was BVMS's presentation. They were talking about if you know your system well, you're going to be able to go ahead and search and try to, navigate where, maybe a person came through a room or whatever. But with AI, now all you have to do is type that stuff in, or you need to talk and tell it, hey, I need to find this, and it's like instantaneous. If you're not thinking about AI, you're going to get left behind. It's just, and as you mentioned earlier, unfortunately in physical security, we've all kind of just, I was a person who used to really fight against change, right? We've learned a little bit as that change came when we went into the IT side of things. Now AI is coming. We have to learn to go ahead and accept that and embrace it and make sure that everything that we're looking at moving forward with the systems, we're embracing technology and making sure that it applies to our operations, our environments. And I think that AI is going to be a big driver, moving forward. Absolutely.
And I'll pigtail on that. Coming from the video side of the house, and I know that some of you may know, I also have worked at Bosch for many years. Learned a lot about the capabilities of machine learning and AI structure itself. I think it's important to understand that coming from just a machine foundation, a machine learning foundation 5 years ago to where we are today with agentic AI, changes the entire landscape. That's just 5 years.
Yep.
We've gone from an operational, and I think if you look at agentic AI specifically, there's a pathway that's going to enhance or improve. As you said, it's about continuously changing and modifying our position in order to fit the need and demand that our customers are setting as an expectation. So you're moving from an operational approach to a policy approach. Because if you're moving into policy, now you can utilize the agentic side of the house to be able to drive a lot of that policy within your physical security infrastructure, which is tying back to your cyber structure to ensure that the integrity of what you're producing is foundational for your site.
That governance and is always forgotten, right? And I was in Mexico City speaking to integration groups and consultants, and this is completely foreigner. So we have a little more of a dialogue in the States about that, but Latin America is rapidly adopting, and the solution is simple: find the expert. If your company, your organization, your team is not equipped to understand clearly how to take the next steps and how to implement AI, find the expert. Manufacturing, we're developing those roles as the technology moves fast. So reach out, figure out who's your next expert for implementation.
So the next question, and Jeff, you sort of broached on this with policy, but and I'll let whoever would like to answer this first. Eric, maybe it may be right up your alley, but how are regulatory authorities and various industry mandates shaping the modernization conversation?
I think so. From a regulatory standpoint, for federal, and you can probably speak better than I can from the federal side, but they're always putting out regulations that you have to follow, right? And you need to make sure that when you do decide to modernize your system, that we're looking at those regulatory requirements and we're making sure we're meeting them, or in some places maybe exceeding them. But I think that shapes what you need to do, and not just on the federal side, but there's standards and different things that are in place that you have to abide by, and you want to be able to meet those standards, right? I think one of the things in modernization, and I was going to get to it a little bit later, but I go ahead and mention it now, is that you have to really take the holistic approach and make sure that you're looking at the entire environment. And when you do that, if you're not applying some sort of reasoning behind your modernization, is the technology old? Am I not getting the right video? Am I not getting the control of the access or intrusion? Am I not getting what I need to get from this? If you're not taking a big like a holistic approach to this, one, getting an assessment, right? I know there was a conversation earlier on today about risk assessments. If you're not understanding how to apply your new system, you're really just throwing money at maybe a problem or at something that really maybe is not the right decision to do that, right? And so things that'll help you kind of hone in exactly how you want to modernize is the regulatory and compliance and standards, but also assessments. Understand where your gaps are, what do you need, where are your risks, and how do we go ahead and apply those, right? And so, when you do find those situations, then look for solutions. And it's not always going to be one solution is going to be the right fit, right? There might be multiple solutions that come together to make the right fit. So I think it's really important to keep in mind when you are modernizing your systems. Make sure you go out and find somebody, as you mentioned, find somebody who knows what kind of compliances are out there, what kind of standards are out there, things that may not be apparent or maybe a part of your environment currently, and make sure that you take a look at it holistically and say, okay, what's out there that I don't know, and why should I be putting security into modernizing these situations.
For those of you that are operating either as an end user in the federal space or operating as a prime contractor or an integrator, you know that the compliance standards are an endless alphabet soup of acronyms. We have compliance upon compliance. You have everything from FIPS 140, FIPS 201, NIST 853, NIST 800 171. Then you got SOC 2 compliance. And then on top of that, you have CMMC, which is your cybersecurity maturity model, which is in itself continuously evolving. All of these individual certifications or compliance standards in the federal space are being massaged every day. A good friend of mine who I was just having a conversation with earlier, just finding out that the FAR is getting ready to go through an overhaul. Who knew? I stay in touch or stay engaged with the FAR literally every month. Had no idea that they're going through an overhaul next month. So changes that are associated with that. And it all still circles the drain around zero tolerance, a zero trust factor. When we're looking at everything that we do from a credentialing side or from a physical security installation support side in a federal installation, we have to mandate and meet those compliance standards in order to operate in that environment. Yeah. So it's constantly evolving.
For sure.
So in my case, in the manufacturing side, and over the years that I've been involved, my focus in 20 years has been regulated markets and critical infrastructure, because it's driven by minimizing risk, right? Or minimizing impact, liability. We used to use this formula, risk times, right? The reality is it has a tangible cost that can be assigned for your organizations to move forward. And we not only deal with the U.S. regulation, we deal with, just recently in India, the STKC now limits the access to cameras to India. So we got to keep up, as manufacturing, keep up with all these new regulations, European regulations on supplies. But to me, it's a good thing, because as an industry, we need to have a path forward to minimize risk and justify cost, right? So that's what conversations are easy when it's not just about budgets, it's about minimizing risk. That is an impact measurable. So.
One last thought to that. Yeah. A lot of the compliance standards that we're seeing in the federal space is now starting to cascade into the commercial environment. We're seeing more and more industries take on the compliance standards that have been established in the federal space in order to ensure that the integrity of their systems operating in the commercial side meet the same strict standards. And so that is constantly evolving. I think you can see probably a large portion of that in data center environments today. Data centers now follow the same guidelines that products, services, technology that goes into those facilities, the same mandates that the federal government mandates as far as compliance standards. All of it's now starting to work as an ecosystem.
I almost see a big cycle, and sometimes it's a multi-year cycle. You have manufacturers that come out with new technologies and new things that certain customers within the commercial world are more open to try, because they're not maybe restricted by regulations. Right. Those technologies, those features, functionality get adopted. The regulatory authorities start writing their regulations, and then it starts trickling down, like you're saying, Jeff, to other, maybe not as aggressive commercial customers, and we end up with this cycle. Yes. Because the regulations do flow down ultimately, and sometimes it's not just our technologies; it's how we operate as a business, right? There's been a lot of changes in how we process data in our own private companies, meeting FARs and DFARs and all of these cyber rules that are not just about your security systems, but it fledges through the whole entire market space.
And the other thing is it gives you a baseline, right? If you're in the commercial side and you don't have, your industry that you're in or your market that you're in doesn't have a standard or anything like that, if you go and look at maybe, a FIPS 201, not probably that one specifically, but, some of the other standards that are out there, physical security design standards and things like that, it gives you a baseline. So now, if you needed some sort of reasoning behind why you're doing what you're doing, it gives you that. It's not just, hey, I need it or I want it, right? This is the cool new little gadget out there, I want that. there's a reason behind doing it. So it's, and I agree with that whole coming around piece on the commercial side.
Yeah, you had a question?
So question, as you roadmap how you do your business models going forward, and you're trying to integrate cybersecurity and all other aspects that go with security now, as you look at your roadmap for the future, are we still trending more towards maintaining open architecture systems, or are we going back towards more proprietary systems just to maintain more of a locked system for security purposes?
So before, I'll let whoever chooses to answer, but let me repeat it so it's on camera this way. So your question, if I can summarize it, is moving forward as you look towards the future as a company, do we believe the industry is going back towards an open architecture or more proprietary type systems that can incorporate these cyber rules? So who wants to take
I'll
that
jump
one?
on that one. Funny enough, we were having a similar conversation earlier. So we took a very pragmatic approach to those type of situations because the reality is aging infrastructure is really hard to replace if you're not working with a manufacturer or a solution provider that gives you the opportunity to be open. We're talking about gaps 4 or 5 years on upgrades in software and even longer when you're talking to hardware. So in our approach as a company, a manufacturer, and I'm speaking generally, not just by command, but we suggest you bring or do business with a company that will have an evergreen solution, that no matter how long you purchase it still will work with the latest system, with probably less of efficiency of the newer stuff, but it still works. So that gives you the opportunity to still be safe, right, or maintain your edge devices at zero trust. So that's one side. And the second part of that is be able to phase them out over time. And instead of having a reactive plan, when there's budget we expand, you create a roadmap to a later state where you have exactly what you're looking for, but now you can budgetize it over time. So it's easy to digest for the financial standpoint of view, and also it helps continuity to achieve the ultimate security state that you're looking for.
Yeah, and from a consulting standpoint, we tend to go towards the open architecture. It gives a lot of flexibility to the clients to, as things grow, and mentioning 4 or 5 years down the road, things change. You may want to change systems, things of that nature. But what I will say is, even the ones that do maybe have some proprietary equipment or devices, companies are now coming out with, and Gallagher has one right over at their booth, where they're taking that open architecture and transferring it over to their system, right? And so you'll probably see more and more of that down the road, to the point where almost everything is pretty much open architecture. There's sayings that, yes, it's proprietary, but, right, this is how you can be non-proprietary. And so, I think that as we grow more and more, everybody wants that. Everybody likes to hear that if I want to change, I can change. But I think ultimately for an end user, and again, when we go in, we want to understand the need and the wants, the features and things like that. And so if it happens to be that a proprietary system is what fits your environment, then that's what you should do, right? I feel like it's really kind of based on, those needs and wants and features and requirements that you have in place, because some open architecture may not give you what you want, and some proprietary may not give you what you want. So.
And I'm going to throw a twist into this whole conversation here. So
Nice.
That's why we're here,
We're looking for it.
Just because I can. No, I'm just kidding. There's a distinctive difference in the terminology when you're talking about open versus proprietary. And I understand both sides of the fence, especially when you're talking about open architecture. Open architecture is it's a play on words that basically summarized means that we have an architecture system that allows us to ingest data from multiple types of devices. And vice versa, we share our data with those devices. That's an architectural design. Proprietary means, in the same context, is that we own the software. No one's going to modify our software. No one is going to take and change how we do our business in the access control space. The same with Bosch in the video space or any other manufacturer. That is a piece of proprietary information. But can we adapt other products into our platform? Can we ingest what those products do, like video, like other intrusion devices, LiDAR, radar, even some very interesting technologies that allows us to manage data that's coming in and out that's not specifically related to physical security. So when you're looking at an open architecture versus proprietary, we're 100% proprietary. But we are open to ingesting data through our REST API so we can be a system, an ecosystem that allows the customer to manage multiple devices, multiple pieces of technology simultaneously through our proprietary software. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's really about just fostering the collaboration between the integrators to really make sure that you're open to be able to pull different systems.
Exactly.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
integrate them into your system.
Yeah.
And I think as an industry too, we have been gravitating towards this for years.
Yeah.
You know, if you look 30 years ago in the access control world, and I lived in the world 30 years ago and have been out of it for some time in the perimeter, but everything, communication protocols, everything was proprietary.
Yes.
This
Very much
panel
siloed.
talked to this software.
Yeah.
And now we have things like ONVIF and different communication
OSPP.
protocols.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Where we're trying to accomplish that whole thing. And you know, I think in the beginning maybe there was some fear, and we're talking years ago, from individual manufacturers who didn't want to lose their customers. But the reality is, the more open we are, the more opportunity we have to provide a solution. I think everybody on this stage, we're a solution provider. And that goes to your open architecture question, right? I go in, I sell a very specific line of product. We make line detection sensors. This is the line, don't cross this. But I work with these folks. I work with the Midchest group. I work with everybody because I understand I'm this big in the whole security site profile, right? And so if we're not collectively, from a mindset all the way down to equipment and software, working holistically for our end users, then we're all making mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the open piece, it didn't want to confuse the question because we actually had a federal customer come to us that had their own proprietary software asking if they could just buy our controllers. Our controllers are driven, the entire cyber footprint around our controllers it's based on the software that we manufacture. So that's proprietary information. So we had to tell this customer that no, we can't provide you a blanked out controller. That doesn't exist because the integrity of that controller now is no longer functional because of that. So that would be an open product. It would be open to anyone's modification or addition to or take away from whatever services they wanted to put on it.
Because I've noticed with a lot of products now, that right now currently there is that good collaboration where one vendor works with another vendor, and they find ways to integrate the system. And so, of course, following that was just making sure that that's the trend that we're going to continue to follow.
Yes.
Going forward, as opposed to everybody now, and with all these mergers and whatnot, choosing to go back into silos again.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see a silo again.
Yeah.
I think we're all now equally yoked to build the best solution that we can operationally and to ensure that the integrity of those devices that are attached to all of our systems are working in the manner and capability that the customer is setting as an expectation. And that comes back to the consultancy role.
Yeah, we have passed the threshold. I don't think the industry can go back if
No.
they wanted to.
No, they can't.
So some of this conversation right here, which was very helpful, hit on our next question. So we're talking about how do we ensure that designs remain adaptable and future ready, and I think we sort of nailed that with this conversation. But the next one here, modernization can be costly.
Right.
So how do we advise clients, or how would you advise clients to prioritize And then also, how do you build the business case to go get that money? We all know there's people in this room that would like all kinds of new features, right? But we may not be the one who's allocating money for those new features. So what's our solution? How do you guys help your customers and clients make that business case and
Sure.
to move forward?
In our case, we are mission driven. So understanding your mission and how that ties to what you're trying to accomplish will facilitate the funding of it. And also understanding that this is not a patch, it's a long-term solution that includes maybe different solutions, not just in our case, ours. We feel that we're, positioned in that way helps all the stakeholders be aligned to what ultimately can be years of, a relationship. So, in the same tune, if you have a company that is not willing to work with agent technology, they might be missing the boat because that's largely what's out there. I mean, I've seen not just from the U.S., but like I said, Latin America is in the same situation, and we are all impacted by any edge device connected to a network. So, first step is understand your mission, create that high definition picture of what you're trying to accomplish, bring your stakeholders to understand how that's going to impact the risk and liability potential of it. And I think once you have that alignment, have the conversation of what is it that you need to bring and funding it, it's a little easier. And like I said, it's a phase out new old versus new technology, at least in our positioning in the market and the federal government.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is to, and I'd said it earlier, is you've got to have an assessment of your system. You've got to have a good pulse on what kind of security posture you have in your environment. Why are we upgrading? Why do I need to pay for that? What is the background for it? And sometimes it can't be because it's a new feature and I want it, right? I want to be able to do this with it, but why am I going to pay for that? Having that assessment will, again, we try to, on the consulting side, what we try to do is we try to give a baseline for everything that we do. Why did we put a camera here? Because this is why. This standard told us to do this. You have to do this because it's a compliance thing. Same thing with, deciding when you're going to upgrade and where you're going to upgrade. Well, this is your biggest gap. This is your biggest risk right here. But you won't know that without some sort of assessment, third party or internal assessment of your systems and where have my incidents happened, right? So when we do assessments, we'll have all of the incidents and then we go out and evaluate all the systems. We take those incidents, we look at the systems and their evaluations, we marry them together. Some of them happen because of this. This door was opened because the closure's not working, whatever it may be. And then you can apply a risk that's already happened in your environment. You can say, hey, we had this incident happen to us. We had the assessment. The assessment said that this door wasn't closing. That's why we need to get a new system. That's why we need to get a new system on that door, whatever it is, video, whatever it might be. But I think the biggest thing for the security team or operations facilities, whoever is managing the security, the physical side, is you have to have that documentation and that backup. And sometimes it's not just enough to have it internally. It sometimes has to be third party. It has to be somebody else to say, yeah, you're right. You do need that. And unfortunately, that's, I say unfortunate because you know what you need, but sometimes you need to have somebody else say it. But the other thing is, I'll say, is an assessment to an upgrade, just an assessment of your facility, depending on the size and things of that nature, percentage-wise of the actual upgrade is very little. It's a very small amount of money to get an assessment versus a full revamp of your system. And so being able to have that assessment and being able to come in and say, hey, I need $1 million to upgrade all my system. I had this assessment. It only cost us this amount of money, but I had this assessment and this is why we need the upgrade. People will listen to you. If you can apply a risk and or an incident to the reasoning behind why you want your upgrades, people will start to listen.
Yeah, I think that adage right there is true in all of our lives. I know, and I make jest out of this, but it's reality, and it's about mindsets. Sometimes a third party just holds more weight. I can say something to my wife 20 times over the next month, and every bit of it will just go not over her head. it's just dismissed because we're close, right? And a stranger can come say the exact same things, and all of a sudden she's on a gold mine. And it's not different in our worlds, right? We see what we see every day. You guys know the holes or the struggles or the failure points of your systems or your security plans. But telling that to somebody in your own organization, for whatever reason, sometimes it's got to come from a third party.
Prioritization. I was to tell a quick story. I was here within the last few weeks. I was invited by a commander to come in and sit down and talk about prioritization. He just received a pallet full of products from his service supply for upgrading physical security. The pallet of products that he received was 25-year-old intrusion panels. A pallet. Now, I'm not talking about just a small pallet. I'm talking about a full forklift pallet full of intrusion panels. Let's just say they were 25 years old, and we'll leave it at that. And so he asked me to come in and sit down with him and talk about what does he need to do to educate those above him to understand the risk and liabilities that they're creating by providing technology that is not really technology. I mean, it's an I/O device. I mean, it's basically 2-wire, 4-wire with some level of communicator. And it's all independently siloed across each of their facilities. So there was no interconnectivity to that. So he was asking, what can we do to educate those above us that we need to be better at what we do in securing our military facilities? I said, well, first thing is you got to prioritize. And what is critical, what's important to your organization? What do you have in place today? What is currently end of life? What have you had in here that's been more than 15 years old, which is roughly 90% of the equipment that was installed? So the point being is that we got into a whiteboard conversation about modernization, and it truly drilled down into a common operating environment. And that's where you create this ecosystem of technologies that are all interdependent of each other. In some cases will have unique functionality that is an enhancement to a specific need based on priority, but they work together. And again, I don't want to use the word integration because that's an overused word that often loses its value because it's overly used. But modernization means that you are building a platform that's common across multiple products. So they're all talking to each other. They may be independent, they may be proprietary, but they are communicating information that allows another piece of product to establish a result. And that result drives a piece of information that someone can actually make a decision on. I mean, that's an overly simplistic way to do this, but when you're looking at a common operating environment, you're looking at an ecosystem now that's allowing multiple disparate products to talk to each other. And it can happen. We've seen it happen. We've installed it. We've managed that. We've created common operating environments before using disparate products to achieve a goal in the nuclear space specifically. So it's not a PSIM. I don't want to scare anybody. So we're not talking about PSIMs here. We're talking about an environment to where collective manufacturers have come together to communicate information for the common good. And the common good is the security of the site.
Yeah. And you know what, to me, we always forget, sometimes we get so busy talking about technology and widgets and solutions and software that ultimately, as security professionals, we're protecting lives. It's not to be sober about what we do, but this is what the responsibility is, right? So we can talk about risk, we can talk about liability, but ultimately we're talking about potential life lost. So there is no more higher value to position when we talk about to other people that what if this happened, how would you like to be the responsible party, not making a decision? So, but agree, we work all together and unify communications, unify access control, video, make, in my book, save lives in minutes, not in meetings. And that's something that I like to keep in mind every time we have a conversation. Yes, budgets, yes, costs, but ultimately that's the biggest responsibility.
It is.
And one other thing to add about budgets and understanding your upgrades, where your risks are, saving lives and different things of that nature. The other thing about understanding that is we're talking about budgets and everybody's thinking, well, we're all secure. Most of us are security people here, right? But the thing is once you understand those risks, then you can actually apply those maybe to some other departments, right? Right now, we're talking about security, cameras, access control, different things like that. But we also have to talk about our clients, right? Our customers, which are our internal employees and or departments. And so when we are looking to do upgrades and someone says, hey, why do I need you? What's the budget look like? Why do I need to give you so much money? Some of that can be offloaded to other departments, right? So we talk about infrastructure, aged infrastructure. Well, IT loves to improve their infrastructure. They love their fiber. They love to get new switches. They love to do that, right? So now you can take some of that cost that would be upgrading your security systems and now look at IT, and IT can become a partner of ours. And there's other departments that can be as well. Facilities can be even sometimes partners that we need to make sure that we're tapping into. It doesn't have to always be just security. When you figure out those upgrades that are required and who they affect, whoever that may affect may be your next partner and allow you to get a little bit more money, a little bit more budget to apply to those modernizations of your systems.
Yeah, I have a project going on right now. It's at a nuclear site, and it's unfortunately our nuclear industry as a whole has a lot of aging infrastructure. And this site has microwaves all the way around their perimeter. They're all analog, dry contact relays, reporting alarms. Even at this site, they're still dealing with analog cameras and analog to IP conversion because they just don't have the network infrastructure out there. Well, there's 3 different contracts that are going on right now with 3 different balls of funding. And the scenario is this: they'd really want to install our PoE fully networked microwaves, but there is no fiber ring. The fiber ring around the site is part of another contract that involves a camera upgrade that's actually 2 years out. And there's a whole security system upgrade project that's a whole different ball of money. And although sometimes this is the same people, like you're saying, sometimes you bring these different, you're talking about departments, but sometimes it's just different people in the same security industry and talking about something collectively. And we were able to find some funding to put the fiber ring within the microwaves, which only advanced another project. But if there's not communication and collaboration amongst, and sometimes in our world, we have to be the purveyor of that collaboration and brainstorm. You guys the same in your respective fields. Any questions, any that we didn't cover, anything that might be relevant to you guys?
I think when you talk about budgets, it's good to find out where that money is. Oftentimes, at least for me, it's in facilities. You have to have facilities at the table with you to get the buy-in from all parties.
Yep, yeah, it's true. So the comment was, just so it's on, that sometimes we have to figure out who really holds the purse strings, if I put it in my own, where is the funding available? And oftentimes that's in facilities, which may be separated from security. And again, you got to bring the team together holistically. Well, again, thank you. I'm normally the guy who goes over, and we're 1 minute to spare. So Jeff, Eric, Tino, thank you for your time up here. Thank you guys for hanging out.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.